lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Hello, horror hounds, and welcome to Now Slaying, an It Slays podcast production where we break down the latest and greatest in the world of horror. I'm your not so humble host, Colton.
I'm Rowan.
And today on the show, we'll be discussing Hokum, which was released May 1st, 2026, exclusively in theaters. Now, Rowan, Damian McCarthy first began to make waves back in 2020 with his directorial debut, Caveat, which I remember garnering some praise around online as this sort of hidden gem. And then he followed it up a couple of years later with Oddity, this strange little wooden golem movie with one really notable jump scare that I still remember to this day. And now he's back with what is shaping up to be his most commercial feature film yet, Hokum, starring Adam Scott, distributed by Neon. Was this shaping up for something that you were looking forward to checking out?
Yeah, so I remember seeing the trailers. I feel like I've seen the trailer now forever. Just kind of being pumped for this. I was a fairly big fan when we talked about Oddity. I liked it, especially for kind of the straight to Shudder stuff, and I enjoying that, kind of Irish folklore type thing. I remember, making fun of the commercial because I thought the scare of the commercial, for some reason, the eyes just reminded me of that viral sensation Momo or whatever.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So I was like, is this a Momo story or something? What's going on here? And I'm always excited. I'm always excited because it's not super often we see these kind of always direct to Shudder directors kind of get a shot at doing something bigger at this kind of scale. Whereas, Shudder has been putting their stuff in the movies, but it's still always just like a Shudder release kind of. It's of note that this played in my local theater, so this is a little bigger.
Well, it's Neon, right? And they're known for giving prestige horror, elevated horror, this, wide distribution. It's probably everywhere in North America.
Yeah, well, in this, Neon's, this is the side we ride when we're tired of hanging out with all those A24 losers. We go over the Neon and ride over here. But were you excited for this? Were you looking forward to it?
Yeah, I was looking forward to checking it out. It's a new Neon horror movie.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm at least interested to some degree. It is the sort of horror that I didn't watch the trailer for leading up to it. I did see the scare or the creature or Momo or whatever you want to call this, kind of demon, this bunny, this whatever it is in the marketing kind of make the rounds on social media, and a lot of people kind of pointed it out that it was this absolutely terrifying moment in the trailer, but I hadn't yet seen it for myself. Oddity, I enjoyed. I thought it was good. It was one of those that was vastly overhyped leading up to the release on Shudder, so I saw it with kind of having this idea of something else in mind, and it didn't really live up to those expectations. But like I said, it has one hell of a notable jump scare in it, and even though I didn't like all the golem stuff, it was at least unique. It was the sort of thing where I think McCarthy did a good enough job in that movie that I was looking forward to seeing what he would do next. And then I'm a big Severance guy. I worked on the show, full disclosure, at one point, but I think Adam Scott's great in that show. I don't think it's a hot take to say Severance is a great TV show, probably one of the best things that Apple has produced. So I was looking forward to seeing him as a leading man in a horror movie and just kind of seeing what he could do. I like folklore. I like a lot of Irish horror. It was all kind of shaping up to be something that I was looking forward to checking out. Obviously, this show, that's the whole reason it exists, to give us a reason to discuss these newly released horror movies. So I knew it would be something that I would eventually, inevitably wind up checking out. So is this an honest-to-God horror classic in the making? Or just a pile of, hokum? Well, before we get into that, let's throw it on over to the trailer.
I'm stuck down here.
The story about a young bride locking herself in here once.
I can't find a way out.
What do you think happened to her?
There is nothing down there.
I keep hearing something.
Hokum was written and directed by Damien McCarthy, and the story is as follows. A horror writer visits an Irish inn to scatter his parents' ashes, unaware the property is said to be haunted by a witch. Now, here on Now Slaying, we like to keep things relatively spoiler-free up front before getting into the more in-depth spoiler-filled discussion. So, Rowan, what are your spoiler-free thoughts on Hokum?
Yeah, I thought for a Damien McCarthy movie, I think anyway, I'm a little biased. I think he's really good at atmosphere and kind of all of his films and what he's building. Obviously, caveat, oddity, like kind of very like smaller locations, or like, you know, the oddities like in kind of one building essentially, and caveats in one tiny house like on an island.
Okay, I've never seen Caveat. So.
Okay, yeah, it's very similar to, it's very enclosed. It's kind of almost a chamber piece. I think he's so good at building these atmospheres that are like off and creepy, but still feel like, oh, like people would still exist in these creepy areas, even though you as the viewer can tell they're kind of off. And I think with the extra money, like I just think he did such a good job in this. I think the sets I love, like, you know, the hotel I love. I thought the bed and breakfast is probably a better way to describe what Ohm is staying in, Adam Scott's character. I just really love that. I even love, you know, it's been a long time since on the podcast we talked some architecture. I love the opening in the house. I just love that. It was kind of giving me almost all the glass windows, giving me almost a like Goodnight Mummy vibe going on.
Oh, yeah.
But I just really thought the atmosphere in this worked. I was very concerned because I was like, you know, once these horror guys get a bigger budget, you're always kind of worried, like, oh, is that magic of like being very constrained for a budget and stuff like that? Like, is that going to be gone? Is this going to be flashy? Are they going to be like, oh, I'm going pop now, like I'm going to make The Nun or something? I don't know. Like, I was very pleasantly happy that I thought this really stuck to kind of his roots in a natural way to progress it into a bigger budget. Like, it still felt like this quaint Irish horror story, this folklore story, just on a little grander scale, but it never seemed, at least to me, that it was like out of reach at any time, that he overreached what he was trying to do. I think his use of negative space and background stuff is like really well done in this. I'm not gonna lie, like, I was scared when I watched this. Like, this is it's been a long time since I've actually been scared.
Wow, okay. All right.
And like, even scared, like driving home and like getting out of my car and going into my house. And I was just like, oh, yeah, like, I just kept thinking about, like, scenes in this, and I'm like, oh, shit. The only reaction I can think similar to it is, like, any time in my life when I watch the original 90s It, and then I just think about Tim Curry's Pennywise, and then I'll be, like, sleeping, and I'll be laying in bed, and, like, oh, you know, my mind's like, what happens if Tim Curry's Pennywise just pops his head out of the corner of my door? And that's, like, the same feeling I got from this, and as a desensitized horror fan, I absolutely loved it. I was so happy that it made me feel like that, and I thought it was we'll get into it in the spoiler section, but I thought it was I really enjoyed the mystery of this, that even though, like, I wouldn't even say this is necessarily like a full out, like, horror extravaganza. Like, there's a very whodunit kind of section of this, and normally that would kind of turn me off, but I actually really enjoyed it. I think the cast is tight enough and the characters are good enough that it keeps you kind of intrigued of like, oh, who could it be? Who could it not be? And as it unravels, I enjoyed as the whodunit unraveled that, like, the horror also unraveled a little bit into like more and more, you know, things going on. So it's not just one thing. And I also want to give a big shout out to the marketing, because going into this, I was very confused but interested, because I'm like, oh, well, they're like showing this creepy what I call Momo thing.
Yeah.
I was like, that's interesting that you would just show that off right away. Like, so what, like, am I just going to see this thing like for hour and 40 something minutes? Like, if you're showing me this, there's got to be something else to it. And luckily there is something else to it. And, you know, that may only play a minimal part in it, but I just thought overall I was so impressed the jump into something bigger. I also really liked Adam Scott's performance. I thought he was fantastic as just I kind of related it to playing the Scrooge character of just like miserable asshole and what transformations he makes throughout the story. But I also I really liked Will O'Connell in this, who plays dual roles in this. I thought Will O'Connell was fantastic. David Wilmot, I also really enjoyed. Honestly, most of the people in this I really liked. I thought everyone kind of played their role, didn't do too much, was creepy when they needed to be creepy, and kept the kind of guessing and facade of the movie up when you needed it to be up. What were some of your initial thoughts on it?
So this is interesting because I had basically notes to comment on every single thing that you've commented on.
Yeah.
I think I'm on the opposite side of it.
Oh, really?
This is a weird one for me where that sounds especially harsh, but going into this movie, obviously these movies are largely this elevated genre horror is something that I always gravitate towards and usually really like. And I don't think Hokum does anything terribly wrong. It just, in my opinion, didn't really do anything really well enough to be remarkable in any sort of way for me. I think the movie's conceit of this sort of whodunit horror movie is fun, and I think it has a great cold open and a great epilogue that bookends the film. But outside of that, there wasn't a whole lot that I could really put my finger on that I truly liked or loved. You mentioned all the characters and the acting. There is this direction issue I think I have with the movie where everyone to me didn't play as a character. They played as an actor playing a character, which could be explained a little bit by Adam Scott's vocation. You know, he's a novelist. He sees everyone as characters in order to spin a tale. Maybe there's this argument that it could be framed from his point of view a little bit more. But for me, everybody just read kind of too fantastical and a little bit too false. You mentioned Adam Scott in particular. He plays, you described as a Scrooge character. He basically is this self-absorbed asshole. But for me, it was in this sort of swarmy, inauthentic, winking at the camera sort of way, which for, once again, this kind of genre are usually it would be weird if you're watching Hereditary and Toni Collette winks at the camera as if, oh, I know I'm being a bitch mom right now. It was just, there was this level of artifice to basically all of the characters and even the supporting characters, Adam Scott and then all the supporting characters, that I just couldn't really get into it a lot. I did like some of the scenes, obviously, involving these supporting characters. There's some stuff with Fiona in the bar while he's kind of telling her his new novel, what he's working up to. That I think there's some fun moments. Similarly, so there's some moments between him and Albie, this bellboy, that I thought was decent. But for a lot of it, just because of the conceit of this movie and how it kind of turns into largely a chamber piece, it really is just the Adam Scott show. And if you don't like what he's doing, or if you think it's a little bit misdirected or a little bit too theatrical, I think you're going to bump on it, a lot of it. And that's more so how I felt with it. I'll also say I think the movie tips its hands very early. There is a way you could read into it a little bit more like how myself and Mike read into it, that we'll get into in the spoiler discussion. But this is the sort of movie that within the first probably 15 minutes, it lays out something in extreme detail that you go, oh, that'd be pretty strange if it wasn't the whole basis as to what's happening in this movie. And, you can sit there for the next hour and 20 minutes and see if your suspicions are confirmed or not. So while I'm sitting there watching this movie, I'm not really surprised at any point in time. You said you were scared. I very much was not scared. I think he uses the same jump scare 6 or 7 times, which is a pale-faced woman sort of jump scare or pale-faced entity sort of jump scare. And I don't know. This was just one I felt a little bit bummed watching it all. I didn't hate it. I didn't hate it. I didn't think it was bad. It was just unremarkable in almost every way. It was the sort of thing where when I watched Oddity, I was let down watching it. I enjoyed Oddity and probably a little bit more than this movie, but I was just kind of let down, I think, overall when I was watching it. It just didn't really land fully for me.
Now, you went opening night, right?
I did, yeah. I went Thursday night. There wasn't really like too many reviews or anything out about it, and I don't know, I had a handful of people in the theater with me, maybe 6 or 7.
So I went and saw it on a when was it, a Friday night? I saw it Friday night at a late showing, and it was literally 2 of us. There was me and my buddy, and we had the theater to ourselves. Nobody went and saw it
Nice.
In our theater, which is kind of disappointing because, like I said, it's kind of rare. Our theater would, like, even with this being a wide release, they wouldn't pick, like, normally they would just put something else in, like a kid's movie or something. So it was weird they got this, and I kind of saddened me that it wasn't on a Friday night, like, you know, a busy night for them. So more people there. Yeah,
I think for me, I think kind of what I can go hard on, or at least like narrow in on, is that if you read this movie, if the performances work for you, I think you'll probably enjoy it for what it is. For me, everyone read more of like a Knives Out, which once again could be intentional because it is kind of like vaguely a whodunit. It's just once again in the horror genre where everyone's kind of playing a very close version of what they should be playing, but it's still like theatrical and kind of silly and whatnot. There was just something about it that didn't all gel together for me when I was watching it. So I love Knives Out, but I don't know if I want Knives Out in my elevated horror movie, was kind of how I felt, I guess.
Now that you say that, like, I probably should have thought about Knives Out, but now that you say it, like, I can see it that how people would pull that from it, because it does very much, a lot of the performances are very, to me, those are very, like, whodunit performances of...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, more of, like, almost a stage play, more so than a horror movie.
Listen, a character saying Hokum, like I know the word Hokum, like, oh, Hokum, but like it is like a Scrooge-like thing to say. So if a character uses the word Hokum earnestly, like in conversation, like Adam Scott's character does in this movie, you are in a very specific sort of world kind of conjured by that. And I just think a lot of the characters in that kind of fell a little bit more into that than me. It was very fantastical, theatrical for a lot of it. And obviously there's a lot more we can say about that aspect in the spoiler section, but that was just, I think that was the main reason why it didn't work fully for me for the entire thing.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, that's 100% understandable. And I think, honestly, maybe I was just, you know, I think going in, I was just a little more receptive to it. You know, I thought, even though, you know, we keep saying it's more of this like elevated horror, I just kind of let it go as I was like, you know what, hopefully I'm gonna have a good time. And, you know, I will say the first bit, Adam Scott's character did kind of press on me where I was worried. I was like, oh, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do this, like... for an hour and 47. But then as it went on, like I said, I kind of grasped on to the other characters, and that kind of saved me. And I also want to kind of sing the praises of Florence Ordash, who plays Fiona, because this is the biggest thing she's ever done. I saw she only got 2 other credits. They're like 2 no-name, no-budget Tubi movies. And... you know, the screen time that she has on here, I was just like, I would love to see more of her in something. I thought she was fantastic.
I agree. I think out of the entire cast, even including Adam Scott, I think she was the closest to fitting in like a regular Neon or A24 movie that I would see. Yeah. Like she was still theatrical, of course. I mean, she was playing like a barkeep and then also like a housekeeper and stuff. And obviously this is a small inn where everybody has loads of roles. But there was a tenderness at times to certain points in her performance, just by what that character has to go through, that it kind of pierced the veil of like a theatrical performance, like on like a theater stage, you know, where it seemed like a little bit more real to me, where everyone else kind of seemed like they were once again, playing a character. So yeah, I agree. Fiona was a standout for me for sure. I think this is a bit weird to say because obviously there are probably a load of Neon movies I really do enjoy. It's just I did a quick scroll through some of their horror stuff recently, and I do think A24 has been doing just a lot of these. It's about trauma, it's about family bonding, it's about a demon or something, and they're very slow and they're very self-serious, so much so that it pushes some people away because it's just too much. It's too like unbearably dark. When I scroll through like what Neon's been doing, you know, Keeper and Shelby Oaks and Together and a couple of years ago, Long Legs. These movies kind of package themselves up as this elevated horror movie. And then when you actually go see it, they're a little bit stranger and weirder than you might expect. Like, you know, I'm thinking about like the creature in Keeper or how Long Legs winds up having this like possessed doll orb sort of aspect to it, which is just a bit strange. Maybe it's just a thing where it's like I enjoy Neon movies, horror movies to a certain degree, but they're not like fully my jam.
You want to be traumatized. Yeah. That's what you're
I want to be traumatized. I mean, I just want my characters to always behave as characters. And I think in a lot of these movies that I just pointed out, even like a Cuckoo, for example, like, you know, interesting movie, packages itself up as a normal elevated horror movie. Then it gets strange and weird and like too over the top. And I think maybe that's just kind of their bread and butter. So that's why these movies work to me to a certain degree, but I don't like fall in love with them. I think a lot of more Neon's dramas and stuff like that. But
yeah, well, we want to us on this side. We want to keep you guys away. That's what I was saying. We're repelling you A24 guys.
Oh my. So yeah, I mean, this is one of those movies that there's not a whole lot to say, I don't think, in the spoiler free section. There's obviously some neat little trappings of Ireland, you know, filming the movie there, you know, with the intrusion of goats, or, you know, the people being friendly, or obviously this little hotel that they're staying at is neat. But really, to like delve into like any of the folklore and any of the more specifics of the movie, you kind of need to get into the spoiler discussion. So would you recommend people go check this one out in theaters?
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna recommend it. Yeah. Like I said, it scared me. Was that with the help of chemicals or anything like that? Maybe that could have been the case also, that I was just open. My body was open for a good time, but a good time was had. And like I said,
you were on the mushroom milk.
Essentially. Don't worry, I wasn't driving that messed up. I was perfectly fine by the time I was out. But yeah, no, I just, like I said, there's not many movies that I kind of think about, you know, when I'm getting out of my car. I think the last one I thought about might have been Weapons, just kids running in the dark. And I'm like, what if kids just started running in the dark? Of course, then I'm thinking, what if I just start running like that all the time? But yeah, this one I just kept me thinking. It kept me thinking, and you know, maybe I'm scared of Momo more than I thought. Maybe it just really affected me. What about you? You know, would you recommend it?
I think it's like a qualified recommendation. It's the sort of thing where I sort of just had this breakthrough in the last couple minutes of the Neon movies, where I've never fully really loved one. They always get a little bit too weird. So what I would say is, if you love the recent Neon releases, like if those movies I just mentioned, you think they're bangers all the way through, they don't lose you halfway through, or there's some weird thing that keeps you at arm's length, yeah, absolutely, go check out Hokum in theaters. I mean, I feel like a bad guy to tell you not to go check out, you know, this $5 million weird horror movie from, you know, an up-and-coming horror director. But for a more general horror audience that you just come here, you listen to what we're saying, and you're not like purely a Neon person, A24 person, elevated horror person, I'd say you could probably skip it. Check it out on streamers when it comes out, and I don't think you'd miss too much. I would be surprised if you disliked the movies I just mentioned and for some reason absolutely loved Hokum, because I think it kind of owes a lot to those sorts of movies. It feels very much of in the Neon branding in that sort of way with everything else I just mentioned. So there's a qualified recommendation from myself and a wholehearted one from Rowan. And with that, I think it's time to cut to our spoiler discussion for Hokum. We are now in our spoiler discussion for Hokum, so if you've not seen the movie, it's time to tune out and come back once you've seen the movie, or keep listening if you simply don't care. Rowan, you enjoyed this one a little bit more than me, and I do not want to yuck your yum. You know, I don't want you to wind up lowering it or anything like that. So is there anything immediately that you wanted to jump to in the spoiler-filled discussion? Did you want to get into Momo? Was there's something in particular?
We won't start with Momo yet. Let's start with this. I want to start at the very beginning because I will agree with you that even though I felt it was effective for me in the watch, we do get the first where I'm like, okay, this is the kind of scares we're gonna get, where we get like, your main character like just moves their head a little bit, and then it's like someone's behind. We're getting the Insidious done to us going on.
Yes, it's the lipstick red-faced demon in Insidious.
Yeah,
they might be behind his head, it might be behind his shoulder, it might be behind his nice cushy chair he's sitting in and writing in his fancy mansion. But yeah, they love doing that scare in this movie.
But I did like with the cold open, I'm very interested in your and Mike's thoughts on this, because I also had opinions on what was actually going on versus not going on.
Okay.
So I am very interested. But I will say, back to that first point, is I do think, yes, they do use that quite a bit. Obviously, as you get towards the end, it's used less scary, I guess, as, it's like this scary thing actually turns into a comfort and a help or whatever. And they try to do a little A24, right? Processing the trauma of losing your mother, losing your parents.
Yes, for sure. I realized when I said that in the spoiler-free section, it was a little bit of a misdirect. Obviously, there's still trauma and stuff there. It's just, once again, explored differently. It's explored through witches and crazy basements and a little bit different.
Did you find, though, I did find it interesting because I was confused until he kind of gets to the hotel and starts talking, because I thought it was displayed more. I was like, oh, this is like his wife or something. Like it just seemed to me like he had the picture of like, like an attractive lady, like, hugging a tree. He's got it in his pocket. I don't know. I just feel like most people whose mothers die aren't like carrying like photos of their mother in their pockets like that.
Now, there was two vials. So what was that? Was it your wife and her boyfriend? Who were you going to bury, with the two things of ashes, I got it right away that it was his
Once
parents.
I saw that, I guess that's true. Once I saw that, I was like, oh, okay. But I still think it's a little weird. There must be a weird mother-son relationship going on here.
Well, I mean, I think there is this weird mother-son relationship going on. I mean, there's the guilt hanging over him that he accidentally killed her, which I think probably messes up the mother-son relationship, especially when it's seemingly caused
that's weird.
Your dad to hate you for years and years. It seems like what the implication is. But no, I mean, I wasn't confused by that. What I will say is, like, I'm curious, like, how much of this movie did you have figured out? Were you surprised? Like, no joke. This is, without a word of a lie. There's a line early on in the movie when he's talking to Fiona in the bar. And he talks about how his mother was killed and about how his father basically went on to hate him, hate his guts, and was, despondent and an alcoholic and drank himself to an early grave. And he says, the person that killed him deserved to be hanged. And then, no joke, 5 minutes later, he's hanged. I had it pieced together that he accidentally killed his mom there. When we hop out from the hospital, it was such a weird hospital scene that I fully believed from that moment on, it was like afterlife. Like, it was literally like purgatorial hell sort of thing for this character, especially with the changes in the filmmaking where it goes black and white for a moment and he's descending in this black and white elevator, where I felt like he was torturing himself to kind of, come to grips with what happened. And it was going to be revealed near the end that it was like, oh, it was all dead, or it was all part of a manuscript that he worked out on the page or something like that. So I'm just wondering, like, how early in the movie did you have these sorts of reveals figured out? Because you're talking about the weird mother relationship, but at like 10 minutes later, I think I had the whole movie figured out.
Yeah, so I until you said it now, I didn't even really think about when he talked about being the reason. Like, I knew he killed his mom, but about his dad.
Of course.
So I went for a bit in the movie where I was like, once he hung himself, I was like, oh, okay, now, we're in this weird hotel. There's weird stuff going on. And I thought the same thing. I'm like, okay, he's dead. Like, he's dead. Exactly. This is
I think once again, like, the performances where they are like theatrical and a little strange and a little unnerving.
Everyone's a little off. Yeah.
Yes, a little off, where I think it kind of leads you to think that. And also the hotel's a little weird as well. Like it's mostly vacant and they're getting ready to, lock it all up. The honeymoon suite is in a separate elevator behind a locked gate. That's the locked gate is attached to the owner who's in a wheelchair. Like there's all these weird kind of heightened aspects to this movie to make kind of the puzzle box fit together that I just think it all made more sense that it wasn't real and then it's almost the real reveal for me, the opposite reveal at the end where it's like, no, it actually was all real. It's like, what? How is that possible?
I did have a lot of what you thought because another movie I heavily thought about while I was watching this was In the Mouth of Madness.
Okay.
And so I had also thought, because everyone was kind of off and he didn't seem like he was, he's angry at the bellhop and all annoyed, all this stuff, but like he never seemed off that other people were off. He was just kind of
he seemed like
interacting angrily. So then I kept thinking, I was like, oh, not only is he dead or whatever, but I was like, he's not noticing this because I was like, oh, these are like his characters in the story. So like he knows these characters and they like, so it doesn't put him off that they're being weird. And then, like you said, obviously they're twisted, this isn't going on. And I'll be honest, to me, just the time I had with it, I wasn't like overly digging into this.
Mm-hmm.
I was just like, cool. I'm always a sucker for like, I'm looking at a dark corner. Is there something in the corner? Is there not something in the corner? Something's moving. I'm like, all right.
Now with that, the negative space, something in the corner, I've found numerous times recently that my theaters have just been shitty that I've been in. Was there actually anything in the corner at any point in this movie, really? Or was this just something that the way the shots were framed that you were expecting it? I'm not talking about the pale-faced ghosts that pop up with the big jump scare and violin screech 6 or 7 times throughout this. It's always like a pale-faced woman in this movie. Was there anything ever in the corner?
Most of the time, no.
Okay.
I think there was a couple shots once he gets to the honeymoon suite that you can kind of see, like the witch crawling in the dark or something or whatever. Mm-hmm. But I don't, I think most of the time it's mostly just a fake out of like, oh, you're staring into the darkness.
Yeah, which I mean, it's fine because the movie's actually working on you then in a cerebral level where, you're not thinking about the fact that they haven't even had anything there yet because it's the way the framing is, the way he's conjured this feeling for you to get kind of into that headspace. Where movies that I think about that like do that is obviously like a Lake Mungo or a more commercial movie or TV series like the Haunting of Hill House or something, right? Where I think about like the feeling in which like the Haunting of Hill House conjured in me is like completely like polar opposite to a movie like this. Like once again, this movie it is purely through the level of this storytelling, this artifice, this almost like everyone's performing a role, and the fact that they weren't performing roles is almost the strangest aspect to me. Like that the fact that these were real people in Ireland is what we're led to believe, and not like machinations in a story or not like in an afterlife or anything to bring Adam Scott's character to kind of retribution. So little strange, I guess. Mike essentially believed that this was all in his head. He knew he was like, oh yeah, finally it'll be revealed near the end of the movie that once he hanged himself, he was dead. This was all in his head. I thought that for a lot of the movie as well, just because of even like how fantastical and over top it gets. Of course, there's the witch explanation for that, but
they do a lot of stuff too with like Fiona's body and stuff, and like it being there and then not being there, and the witch is not around, so like the witch is still in the basement, so the witch isn't there but I mean some of that I feel like they kind of resolve where like once he's done his freak out, like she's there, and so I guess I kind of took it as I was like, okay, he's just kind of mentally gone, and he like, he's imagining.
the idea of like Fiona getting up and I think giving him a key thing that he needs at one point and then getting back in the lift. I mean, I don't really care about that. That's like horror 101. That happens in a lot of horror movies where maybe your character is losing his mind, or maybe that person for some reason was reanimated for a moment in which the character needed it. It's more so just the overall, once again, direction, I guess, of the movie. The witch lore. We get into this hotel. I don't know if our guy takes 10 steps before all of a sudden he walks in on a creepy old man telling this young boy about this elaborate witch lore of 2 boys being taken, chained up by this witch, and, one of them gets taken, or maybe both of them are eaten, and, it isn't this interested, almost like claymation sort of style, with little clay visages of the characters and whatnot, almost like Tim Burton-esque, really, to kind of tell this witch tale. And I liked it. I thought it was interesting. I did think the old man who was delivering it was kind of like literally once again in some sort of other horror movie, a very fantastical movie, almost like Guillermo del Toro or something. But instantly I was like, well, this movie has to have something to do with a witch, or this is like a crazy little piece to put in your movie, right? So I sat there and I was like, okay, like the third act of this is going to have to revolve a witch in some respect, and then you have someone telling you about the chalk circle you need to draw around yourself if you're getting pursued by a witch, and I don't know, maybe that sort of stuff, it doesn't really bother you. You're just waiting for the explanation. But for me, I guess I kind of like those things to be a little bit hidden, a little bit better, or like, the exposition to be a little bit tighter, that I don't notice exactly what they're doing. Like, it very much felt like this is the moment in which we need to give all of our witch exposition, because I don't know where else to fit it in this movie, because it's going to be Adam Scott sitting in a chamber by himself for 60 minutes of it.
So in that respect, I kind of understand that, because to me, I almost think this may have worked even better for me if we didn't really know anything about the witch or any witch lore, and maybe the witch, or if they would switch to like something different, just kind of like came out of the basement and is crawling around the ceiling and doing whatever, and just kind of also being like an apparition, or so you're just kind of like, what the fuck's going on? Like, is he just going crazy or whatever? But I agree. I mean, I can definitely agree with that, and I can see with it. I guess I was kind of like, okay, I'll be honest. Most of this movie, I'm just like, I need to know what the fuck this weird looking thing's got to do with, that I keep seeing in the trailer, has to do with
You're just
anything.
wondering about this rabbit thing. Did you catch its name by any chance?
Yes,
on...
I shouldn't say I caught it, but I Googled it. So it's Jack the Jackass.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Is the character. I mean, let's talk about this.
Yes.
Who's watching this show as a kid? This show is frightening. I'm like, this is the scariest shit I've ever seen. Although, I also understand that, like, he's also kind of, like, remembering in his mind this TV show. So I was like, I also thought, maybe this character doesn't even look like this actually in the real TV show. This is kind of in his, like, nightmarish daydreams of, like, this is what this jackass character looked like with the huge eyes, but they're like purely terrifying. And I just thought it was really funny because, like I said, I've seen this trailer 8 million times, and I'm like, this thing looks so goofy, and I thought on the big screen it works so good. I was like, there's something inherently creepy. Although I will say, not the jump scare in the bed. I thought just like watching
the television
show and it talking, like I was like, that's just terrifying.
So I thought that little television sequence was better than the jump scare as well. I mean, the jump scare has been spoiled more or less in the trailers, from what I've seen. That is the image that's been going around. I think they do like a double fake out with that, where there is a small scare and then they hit you with the big one instantly, like kind of or right after, like Whiplash. But yeah, I mean, Jack the Jackass, this jackrabbit, I guess, on the children's show, I liked it. I think it actually does sort of fit a children's show. Just, once again, there's lots of these sorts of children's shows that you take these puppets, you take them out of context, and they look creepy as all hell. A lot of like the animatronics and like Five Nights at Freddy's and stuff like that's what they're playing with, right? For me, this most reminded me of like a Channel Zero sort of thing.
100%. That's all I thought about.
I like it. I think it's cool. I wish it was a little bit more important or prominent to the overall story, other than, you know, this idea of like he was probably watching this when he absentmindedly killed his mother sort of thing. But yeah, I mean, I liked it. I thought it was cool. I just don't think it's very prominent to the overall story. I think, you know, he pops up 2 times, 3 times maybe in the movie, largely in these flashback sequences, right?
Yeah, and shout out to Will O'Connell, who plays Albie the Bellhop also. He plays
Okay, cool.
plays the Bellhop and Jack the Jackass.
Okay, I didn't know that was the dual role he played. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, he did a good job. I think the way that they did the rabbit's like teeth and stuff is pretty weird. Like the bottom of his face, the way it merges with the mask and all that stuff.
Damian McCarthy, just some serious fucked up problems with rabbits, apparently.
Yeah, I haven't seen Caveat, but obviously there's some sort of dried rabbit sort of thing on it. So
Yeah, and there's an oddity. They like throw a dead rabbit, or there's something
do
about
they?
a dead rabbit. And
Okay.
I did read a fact about him that it was like he always has like rabbit motif in his movies, because there's like some, I'll have to here actually, you know, we'll do it live. I think I still have it up. The fact is that the film features rabbit people, which is a reoccurring motif in McCarthy's work, stemming from his childhood fear of the film Watership Down.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, which I mean is the childhood movie where all the rabbits kill each other, you know, sort of thing in vicious ways.
Yes, I think I've
Also
seen that. Is it like
It's animated.
animated? And I think it's the same company that did Lord of the Rings or whatever.
Yeah,
the
probably.
animated one.
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I do remember seeing that.
Which it is really scary and unnerving, and a lot of people read that novel in, like, let's say, like a grade 6 or whatnot. For me, growing up in Labrador, a lot of people do hunting and trapping, and, you know, there's not really a fur trade on the go anymore, but lots of people, you know, catch rabbits. I remember my first, like, serious girlfriend, just like when we were skidooing one time, I went into her garage, and her dad had a bunch of rabbits that he snared, all hung up. And he like just took the fur off them. So there was all these like naked rabbits, you know, with no skin, no fur on, with just like their eyes looking at you. And I was like, oh, I wonder if Damian McCarthy had a similar run-in with just someone who had snared a rabbit, because I mean, it's not a pretty sight. that's for sure.
You know, I don't have any fear of like rabbits that I know of, but you know, God bless those people that do, apparently.
The other like thing kind of to talk about in this movie, I mean, obviously there's the epilogue. We'll get to that. But this whole the tray, what is it called, where you go between floors on the tray? I forget what it's called.
Yeah, I can't think of what it's like a server's elevator type thing, isn't it?
Yeah, so there's a cool idea in here about how the Adam Scott character kind of figures out how to descend to the basement floor. It's brought up with this conceit that the button is broken, and, you know, basically it's a one-way service elevator, and this is where her body is kept, and he has to take it out and prop her up in a chair, which is kind of a little bit creepy that she's watching him go down the elevator. But it's like this clock that it chimes, and, you know, someone with a golf club or a mallet swings it and then hits the bell, and he disassembles it so it hits the button and sends him down and sends him back up. I thought that was a fun little gag. I think it's interesting, like how he descends down to the basement, and it's almost like this surreal otherworldly area. Not quite fantastical. It's not like really like brimming with like vines and stuff like a Pan's Labyrinth or something, but it is very much like he's descending to the limits of like what, you know, what people can process. It's like you're going into like a new world, essentially. This is like a new realm when you go to this basement, essentially, where, you know, this witch lives and exists.
Which is another, the whole basement and the witch and the corridor with, you know, the like demons or whatever behind the corridor. A whole other reason that I think probably most of us were on this train of like, oh, he must be dead. Like this must be.
Yes, of course.
This is like hell. He's getting ready to go to hell.
Exactly. It feels like he's in some purgatorial state, and like he goes down to hell, right? You know, and experiences all this Irish folklore involving this witch. It does wind up being that she follows him upstairs, you know, and there's some good stuff with her climbing up the service elevator, kind of chasing him up, and him drawing the big circle around the bed, which of course I assume all of us saw coming from a mile away. But it was some fun stuff of it kind of skulking around. It kind of reminded me of Krampus a little bit, weirdly enough, just in like this larger figure kind of prancing around like a bedroom, you know, being seen only in like shadow and silhouette and whatnot. It was a neat little moment. I didn't hate it.
Yeah, I thought that stuff overly worked for me. Like, I had fun with it.
Mhm.
So I'm curious, how quick did it take you to be like, oh yeah, Maul is definitely the perpetrator here of this murder that's kind of, the murder mystery in the middle of it?
Pretty quick. I didn't have all of the specifics figured out of, like, obviously that she was pregnant and he was covering up the pregnancy and all this sort of thing, and she wanted to keep the baby. I never had the specifics figured out, but I very much looked at, what was his name? Fergus, something like that. Yeah, I looked at him as the red herring right away, that I was like, oh, he's the aggressor brother. And I was like, this would be a crazy movie in 2026 if you're going to make, like, the bum who lives in the van down by the river, the killer, that'd be crazy. So once you kind of separate, like, once you knock both of those out, there's really only one other dude who could be the killer in this movie. It's not going to be the owner in the wheelchair, unless you're pulling like a Saw.
Yeah.
That he's actually of sound body and mind, and he just rises up out of the wheelchair.
That'd be wild.
Yeah. So, I mean, it wasn't the sort of thing that it really occupied too much space in my mind where I was trying to figure it out. But, like, I very quickly was like, oh, it's not Fergal and it's not Jerry. And I was like, I don't really know who else it could be at that point. Albie? Like, I don't know.
Albie was a little too, like, weird, I found, that I was like, oh, it's definitely not Albie.
Exactly.
I was going to say, I did have a good laugh. I loved when they do kind of the jump scare, but I thought it was played more of a laugh when Jerry's, like, telling the story about sneaking into the hotel to steal stuff, and then seeing Fiona, like, point at the bell or whatever. And I had a really good laugh when that happened.
I don't think that was meant for a laugh. Like, once again, I think
it was meant for a jump scare, but
yeah,
I just
absolutely.
thought it was fun just because Jerry's so unhinged and he's always on this magic milk, that I just thought when he was telling the story, and then it kind of, like, they do the jump scare and then they cut to Ohm, and Ohm is just like, what the fuck is this guy going on about? And, like, I just thought Jerry, I thought, worked perfectly as, like, this good comedic relief throughout it, that I really liked Jerry. I thought Jerry's character was hilarious.
Yeah, I obviously I didn't find, like, I thought that was a failed jump scare, that moment, and then they bring it back a couple of times, and the other times they bring it back, it's comedic, but the first time I think it was in earnest. It was just, once again, he has this style of showing a jump scare, creating a jump scare by the horror is already in the frame. It's just a matter of somebody kind of moving to reveal it, like say someone bending down, or the camera just very slowly moving down, like not jerky like a jump scare would be, but it's like we've already seen it, but like as the camera's gone up, they move the jump scare in position and they just kind of like naturally move back towards it. You have the audio cue. I don't know what it's called, but it's the sort of thing, like, when I was watching this movie, I just felt like the beats of the scare were always the same, and then the scare itself visually, outside of Jack the Jackass, they all looked the same. It was just a pale-faced woman every single time as his mother, or, God, Fiona, or, something like that, the witch, whatever it was. It was just kind of really overly just white, pallid face. As the scare. This final section, it gets pretty dramatic there for a bit. They're burning down the hotel. Poor Jerry comes up and, gets crossbowed right away. They descend kind of down into the basement and fight against the witch, and there's all the chains and, having to cut through the chain and someone getting pulled in to be eaten by all these demons. What do you think of all this sequence? It's, once again, it's pretty, like, over the top, pretty fantastical, but were you completely into it? Like, was this working for you?
This was probably my least favorite of it all. It's not that I hated it, but I liked more being in the room with the darkness and stuff like that, where this is, I'm like, okay, we're just kind of like, we're showing everything. We kind of know what's going to happen. And we've already been kind of set up with this, the chains are going to drag you and all this kind of stuff. So, for kind of a wrap up to, him kind of getting out of the situation, I was just, I was kind of meh on it, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like I said, I like everything else that was going on with the witch, or at least I didn't mind it, but I could have, like, took it or leave it with this stuff. I was just kind of like, oh, okay, like, Mal is getting punished now, and cool. I
will
guess that's great.
I'll give it like a tip of the hat, just because at least it didn't do the third act horror thing that we've been finding so often, where it's just everything goes crazy off the rails and it's just like possessed and you know, things on the ceiling and cabinets opening and closing and all this sort of like CGI bullshit. At least this was all framed around the idea of folklore and this witch, and it was set up, even if it was set up very heavy-handedly, that I would be shocked if you got to the third act of this movie and you were surprised there was a witch in it in any capacity. I think it was very obvious leading up to it. And then I guess like
the conquistador.
Well, I was like, there is that little gag that I do like. I like the idea of like Albie's trying to get him to read his manuscript and stuff, and he's a complete asshole at the bar, and he has no interest in reading anything to do with Albie and burns his hand, which I think is crazy. But I like the wry joke from Adam Scott where Albie's like, oh, you know, I'm going to spend the night. I'm going to polish it up. I'll bring it in so you can read tomorrow. And Adam Scott says, haven't I already suffered enough? And I thought that line was really good. And then Albie's like, oh, you know, it'll be good. And he's like, okay, fine. I'd love to read it, sort of thing. I did like that little ending. Once again, it feels very like Knives Out or something to me rather than an actual horror movie. But it's I did think it was fun. Nice little ending. But yeah, Conquistadors.
The prologue and the epilogue.
I really liked it. I liked the prologue and epilogue. I think it set up an obvious idea of like kind of menace in the beginning of the movie, where it's like very obvious that the conquistador is going to use the boy's skull to break open this bottle. And then we get it confirmed by Adam Scott that like this is the case, and they're both just going to kind of wander in the desert. Like the bottle's not going to be broken. There's no way to break it. And basically they're just going to wander to their doom endlessly. I liked that idea. And about how there was a revised version presented to us in the epilogue. How did you interpret it? How did you like see this? Was this like a father and son kind of reconciling and, you know, learning to work together? Was this like a passing of the torch? What did you think of this ending here?
Yeah, I mean, to me, I kind of looked at it as, you know, Adam Scott, you know, now that he's been through this experience and, you know, he has kind of the makeup with his mom, his ghost mom that saves him from the witch. It's like, yeah, so he, you know, I think he can look at the relationship with his father a little different. And it's like, okay, so now this author that obviously not only writes like horror stuff, but it like very like, it seems everyone it's kind of implied he writes kind of like negative, like dark horror, like bleak endings and stuff. Yes. And so this happy ending. Now, I mean, you know, did Rome want that kid's head to get crushed by a bottle? Maybe. The prologue, when they do it in the prologue, I was just like, oh shit. I said out loud to my buddy, I was like, oh shit, they're actually going to do this. I was like, let's go. I was like, I know you mean serious business then. Unfortunately, they didn't mean that serious a business to kill the kid. Although, if the kid had crushed his skull and just been like, fuck yeah, I also would have took that.
Yeah, I think I would have been fine with either of those as well. I think, obviously, with the idea of the kid getting his head crushed in, I think it's a good stroke by Damien McCarthy to put some imagery like that in your head. But once again, I think that sort of imagery is very different from the movie we get out after the fact. But I actually loved the epilogue ending. I thought it was really good. I really liked the performances by the two conquistadors, or the conquistador and the child, and about basically him accepting his fate and them deciding to, you know, work together. And they're like, we don't need this bottle, and they throw it away, and it happens to land right next to, you know, a cow skull that they could probably break the bottle on. Like, I like this idea of this reconciliation, this coming together, this seeing eye to eye, and maybe realizing they don't need these riches or whatever is like that they could find in this desert, that they kind of have each other. It is very cheesy, schmaltzy, definitely not probably what you'd expect from this horror movie, but for whatever reason, I did think it worked. I did like that.
I mean, like I said, I'm kind of, even though I said, you know, I'm here announcing, please crush a kid's skull. Like, I'm indifferent to it. I was fine with it also. And I mean, it's almost in a refreshing way, right? Because that's just kind of how we're programmed now. We automatically assume that it's going to end with some gotcha or some, like, you know, dreary ending.
Oh my God. It's way more obvious of a movie if he did beat the kid in the head with the bottle. It didn't break. it still can't break, and he's just left there with a dead kid and losing his mind in the desert. I mean, that's probably more par for the course for most horror movies. So I did like that it kind of went in a light way of reconciliation with essentially this terrible father. I did like that. Anything else you want to discuss before we get into rating
I'm
this?
good to rate it.
So if you're new to the podcast, our review rubric is nay, okay, yay, or slay. So Rowan, what would you give Hokum?
Yeah, like I said, I had a good time with this one. I really enjoyed it. As I say, even when it's a terrible movie, and I said it's the worst movie I've ever seen, I'm like, oh, just waiting for it to come out on physical media for me to buy. But this one I definitely am. I may even go see this again in the theater. I'm kind of interested to just kind of pick it apart again, see what I like, see what I don't like. But I had a really, really good time with this. I was very surprised that for me, I thought this was very competent for a bigger budget. I was really worried about that, what he was gonna do with it, and was he able to upgrade into a kind of higher echelon than just doing a direct to stream type thing. I'm gonna land on a yay. I'm like pretty strong yay on this. I really enjoyed it. Like I said, there's very, very count on my hand movies that I think about when I like drive home from seeing them, and Momo just does it for me, I guess. I thought Momo was silly. I was still thinking about Momo in my car. As soon as I got into my car out of the theater, I kept thinking, I'm like, oh, what if I look at my mirror? There's like something in my mirror. And I'm like, that's all I kept thinking about, those fucking eyes. And I was just making fun of it all this time, and it just got under my skin and worked, I guess. So I'm going to give it a yay. I really had a good time. I enjoyed it. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, a lot of my thoughts on this movie were pretty negative throughout, or at least disappointed throughout. So it's probably not going to surprise people that I'm going to land on an okay. I think this movie, in my opinion, is what I would describe as just kind of disappointing and a little mediocre, is what I would say. I think if you can get over the direction of the actors, that if you don't think this dialogue and these performances are a little bit stilted and a little bit theatrical, a little bit tongue-in-cheek, maybe it can lure you in a little bit more to the horror of the movie. But for me, it was just, it all felt a little bit too silly, a little bit too trite, a little bit, just like a Rian Johnson movie, I guess, for me to completely get wrapped up in the world. I did think he did create not an excellent jump scare, I don't think, but I think a good horror image in Jack the Jackass Rabbit. Yep. I think that is something that you could probably just isolate and put, on the internet in the next couple of years, and people would know that it's from this movie. I did like the reconciliation and kind of the bookends of the movie with the prologue and the epilogue and the conquistadors. But all in all, like this Irish folklore, the witch stuff, the performances, and the fact that none of it was bad technically, but none of it really impressed me or really like leveled up, as kind of you said, that I just felt like, yeah, this looks like his movie, but obviously in a larger set. It just left me a little disappointed. So I'm going to land on an okay for Hokum. And if you're not following us on our socials already, you can do so at It Slays Podcast. We're on Instagram, Facebook, Slasher, Letterboxd, Threads, Bluesky, TikTok. If there's a social media, we're probably there at It Slays Podcast. And if you want to help support the show financially, like our horror hounds, Holly, Nicholas, Mark, Steven, Dan, Brian, Trevor, OG, James, and Philip, gain access to the Patreon exclusive show Stream Screams, hosted by Jill, and get episodes of the main show 48 hours early. Be sure to head on over to patreon.com/itslayspodcast and choose whatever tier works best for you. Rowan, we never really mentioned much about music in this movie. I don't know if there was anything too predominant that I'm forgetting about.
Yeah, no, I don't think there was anything that like overly sticks out. I do remember thinking it had a pretty good score, and that I did like the score. We'll see. I'll have to reevaluate it once it comes out, and if it's on Spotify, and see what it is. But I remember it being pretty effective for me in the theater. I don't know if it's like a playlist vibe, but we'll take a look at it. You'll find out if I put it there by going on Spotify and going to the It Slays Podcast Horrific playlist. If you have any problems finding it, you can go to any of the social media that Colton just mentioned. Go in the bio, click the Linktree link, and there's a button that'll take you directly there. We upload scores or licensed music from iconic horror movies we review, to just horror movies we love. We update it regularly. So get your spooky music on, because why the hell not?
And next time on the show, we're going to be reviewing Obsession.
It's about time.
Yeah, I've already seen this one. You know, Curry Barker, he just finished directing a secret movie starring Aaron Paul. He's next in line to be taking over the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise. I enjoyed it. We're definitely going to discuss it on the show, and I need to reevaluate since Tiff and kind of see if he has the chops for what's being thrown at him or not. And with that, I think that about wraps things up for this episode. So until next time, I'm Colton.
I'm Rowan.
And as long as you keep listening, we'll keep slaying.